And tonight I've asked Sonnet. So Sonnet comes from a very strong corporate background, working for some of the big corporates out there. And then in her own private life, she was very involved in company turnarounds, having to take people that were financially down and out, or businesses, and then turn them around and make them financially profitable. So we started to say, what can maybe, and she wants to lead us through an exercise so that we use ourselves tonight here as the guinea pigs, but in the process create some content so that very soon we can also have almost just a bullet point when you start a new group in a or a new town. Here's the bullet points: A, B, C, D, E. But without saying too much further, Sonette, over to you. Thanks.
I was considering this whole process, and let me give you a bit of background quickly. I started my life as a quantity surveyor, had a quantity surveying firm, had a development firm, did developments of big shopping centers and schools and hospitals. Then I studied some further, went into investment banking internationally, came back and did turnarounds of companies by taking them over as CEO for about 10 years. I did different groups, and it was exhausting. Anyway, so that is my background. And when I look at what we're doing in the communities, really what we're doing is turnarounds. We are taking things that are not working and we're turning them around. So in essence, there's basic principles that apply in the whole turnaround scenario. And so I thought, let me just apply that to what I would look at when I do turnarounds of companies, and how it could apply to what we are doing. And are there things that we can use? But my biggest thing here is, one thing I've learned in doing turnarounds is you never worked, and remember, they normally in a very bad place. It was before Business Rescue that I took them over. And you had to be very careful. You had to be a little bit authoritarian at times, but always by engaging people, getting their feedback, getting their input, getting their views, because without that, they will not buy into this thing that you're doing, and it's going to be a painful thing for them. So I've learned those lessons from there, and I think there's a lot of parallels into what we're going to do. But I wanted to make this an interactive discussion tonight because you are doing this on the ground, and I would like to get your feedback, because when we start putting these documents together as guidelines, it's fantastic to have input from the people on the ground who are dealing with this, every day, and they can tell us, okay, no, you know what, that's not going to work. Do it this way, or what about this? And we have discussion. So that's really the purpose of tonight, is to have discussion. So I'm just going to go through the basics here. I did the executive summary. I've already told you the turnaround of companies, and we're going to look at some parallels between the communities and business turnarounds, aspects to be mindful of, and then there's some addendums, which one of you have referred to just now. I just put them in there because I think it's good to have these things sort of in one place. The biggest challenge that one will have is noise, too much noise. So you must be sure that you always filter down to the basics. What are the essential things? What do I need to keep clear? What do I need to have here? And especially when you go into community, there's going to be a lot of noise, okay? Always filter the noise. Where are we going? What is noise that I need to listen to that is part of getting us to where we're going? Always keep your North Star in front of you. That is absolutely essential. And the North Star really is, what is it that you want to achieve? So when I did turnarounds of companies, I would take a company, I would hear what normally the shareholders would bring me in. It was big companies. The shareholders would bring me in. I would take over the CEO role, and I hear what the shareholders think and what they think the problem is, but they really never know. So the essential thing is to say to them, what is your dream? Where do you want to go? What is your vision? That's my starting point. Okay, so where are we going? What is the dream? What is the vision? That is always your starting point. It has to be clear, and it has to be captured in a visual. So once you've got the dream and the vision sorted, you capture it in a visual as to what this town looks like. What is Welkom looking like? when we have actually got this dream fully operational and working. So what is this thing going to look like? How is this town going to look? And put it into a visual, and AI is so fantastic. You can put a lot of different things, collage them, but have a visual, because people need to have that visual in front of them all the time. This is where we're going. That is absolutely your focus at all times. And people buy into something that they can feel, and you can feel a visual. That's part of the whole thing. You have to see it and feel it. Okay. So in most cases, the end outcome, you would look at things like the culture, the performance, the purpose, the growth in a company, but it also applies into a town such situation. And it's always a case of, you have to lay a foundation of being sustainable. Without sustainability, you're going nowhere, okay? And that requires a solid foundation. What do we need in order to be sustainable? And that will vary from town to town. And I think what I'm going to do today is let me go through these things, and maybe, if it's okay with Jasper, you guys go away and think about it. And next time we come and you give your views on this, because it is going to be very important to capture these kind of things. And it's going to vary, but we will always add on and take away as we go along. So it is being sustainable. It is having a growth culture. If you don't have a growth culture, you're going nowhere. Okay, so setting a culture, a growth culture. It is inculcating a performance culture of excellence. And that comes by living it. And you will always have a lot of people that will fall in line and will come alongside you and live that with you. You will have the odd ones that will not want to live that performance culture, but luckily in the instance of turning around towns, etc., it's not a problem. In a company turnaround, these people are employees, and you need to deal with it. So the way I dealt with it before was to upskill them, to retrain them, to reposition them, and eventually have to make one of two choices. They have to go, or it's worked. But in this situation, the people that are not interested in working within these frameworks will not come and participate. So you won't have that problem. And it's really to fulfill every entity has a specific purpose to serve in a community, whether it's a real estate or whether it is a construction company. That's a service that they do in the community, and the community may be local and international, but it's servicing a community. And this is what this group, the CCC, is also going to do. It is servicing a community. And so the dream will encompass those things. It will all be incorporated into that, okay? And remember, everything is always made up of people. It's all about people. Yes, we have IT, and yes, we have all these other machinery, and we have factories, etc. But the bottom line of it is it's people. And we're working with people. Okay, so it is, the dream needs to be very clear. And the input of the people must be in it. So when you're in a town, your input needs to be from the different sectors. Okay, it needs to be from business, it needs to be from the community, it needs to be from the social development, the churches, etc. And because this is a Christian thing, and also from the local government, where that is possible. Get your input from them and combine this and put this whole dream together. And then when you do a turnaround, transparency and clear communication is core. That is it. And communication is not always telling. Communication is informing, but engaging and discussing and getting input. It requires a lot of listening. But it's to get any turnaround to work, communication is core, and transparency. Okay, so the second step of what one normally does is you start to work with what do you have that you work with, essentially? What is here? What are my resources? What are the good and the bad in this whole thing? And it varies from company to company, as it will vary from town to town. So in the case of a company, which will not be the case with you guys, with this situation, you start with an in-depth financial analysis. And that would always flag, when you do an in-depth financial analysis, that would flag some elements. And then you do some discussions. You do discussions with different stakeholders, like shareholders and clients and random staff. And you will not believe what I have learned from the T-girls. They gave me a lot of very important information always. I've learned to talk through all the elements down, right from the top to the bottom, because you get a whole picture. And that is what you guys will do, is just talk randomly to people. But we'll get to that just now. Then I used to do a SWOT analysis, look at strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. And then the thing is to assess what will have the biggest impact. Because in order to get the buy-in of the people, you have to have big impact. Sorry, I just want to put my charger in here. Because once you have a big impact, they will buy in. Everybody will sit and wait and watch, but once you have the impact, people are on board. So you look at what is the biggest impact. It varies, but the impact would really be what would generate the biggest impact with the least input costs, okay? And so you look at that kind of thing. You look at a combination of your strengths and your opportunities. All right, where can I generate either a big income, and we'll talk about that in respect to town turnarounds. But you look at the strengths and the opportunities. How can you match them? And what is your unique value proposition? Now, every town has a unique value proposition. You have elements that are unique to your town. You need to work those elements, okay? But you need to, in discussions with everyone around you, you will find out, okay, maybe you know, but if you don't know, you'll find out what is your unique value proposition that you offer that no other town has. And you build around that, okay? And then in terms of the threats and weaknesses, if it's a case of maybe it's a mining town and there's only one mine and it's going to close. Okay, now what are you going to do? Then by addressing that, you're going to have the biggest impact overall. And from that will flow the other things. So you can also use that as an impact. You focus people by giving them hope. And in Hebrew, the word for hope is tikva. And tikva is a cord. It's a cord that links you to the promise, to the dream. But hope, tikva, is also expectation. So what you're going to do is, by putting the dream there, you create hope and expectation. And that is a start. That can carry you quite a far way. But you have to deliver in order to give it momentum. And by creating goals with specific timelines, specific outputs, people see, okay, something is happening here, and it motivates them more and it builds hope even further, okay? People are motivated when they see a plan of execution happening. And then while all of that happens, the reorganization is done at the firms, which is upskilling and changing a whole lot of stuff, okay? Then the third phase of it really is the work. When I go into detail of all the different elements, management, markets, finances, products, people, other resources, IT, the competition, marketing, advertising, supply, you look at all the detailed things. Now, you guys are not going to do that as such, but you are going to do elements of it. And yes, the critical elements during a turnaround. Management is core. And you guys are going to be the start of the management, and then you bring in the other people that are going to surround you. But it's essential to get the right management in place. The leaders make, or a fish rots from its head. Leaders make or break a company. The companies that I had to go and turn around was due to bad management. It was always the case, okay? Sometimes shareholders, but mostly bad management. I was involved in international investment banking. And honestly, where things went wrong was always bad management. So, they make the decisions. They take the company to where, or the town to where it's going to go. It's very important to get the right management on board. As I've said, communication to all stakeholders, that's everybody involved. That's very important. You must get buy-in from everybody. If you don't have buy-in, you go nowhere. And buy-in comes if you acknowledge them, if they have an input. Doesn't mean that you do what they suggested, but people buy in when they know they've been heard. And so that is very important. Okay, so what are the parallels between, communities and business turnarounds? Because in essence, I think you can all agree this is a turnaround that everyone is doing here. And remember, you're doing it with the Lord, so it's very, very much easier. It's not a difficult thing. He's leading you and he's guiding you and he's driving this whole thing. You are executing as his hands and feet on the ground. Where I was taking over as the CEO and turning these companies around, all of you are the change agents. You're the guys that are kicking off this whole restoration initiative. And you know what? Fortune favors the brave. Okay, you guys have been brave. You've stepped up. There's a fantastic word for courage and strength in Hebrew, and it's chazak amatz. And so when in the old days, the Hebrews, and even now, the soldiers, when they go into fights or things, they say chazak amatz, and that is what you guys are doing. You've taken this courage and you're driving this forward, and God is honoring that. Okay, so you guys are the teams. You've got the CCC guidelines, and you've got a host of other things that you are working on individually. The important thing is to decide what you want to achieve. And this is where we're starting. When you start something like this, when you do something like this, there are always a lot of projects that will come out of the woodwork. Hundreds, believe me, they will just pop up from everywhere. And it's for that reason that you build your structure, you build your North Star. What is this town going to look like? What are the projects that are coming up that we can identify that are going to have the biggest impact and that we need to promote and elevate? And that is how you are going to make your decisions. It's not a case of just grabbing random projects. If this group that you set up in your town was only to do random projects, it's a very different thing to what the whole idea is of the CCC, is really to rebuild the town, the community, the whole thing, because it's able to do that. Okay. So if you're going to focus on building the whole town, rebuilding the whole town, the whole community as a whole, a structured approach is very important. You cannot just randomly grab things and do this and that, and it just sort of, oh, this thing has come up. Okay, fine, let's go and do that. It is, where does this fit in? And is this going to have a big impact? Because remember, you have got limited time. You have got limited resources. You have to apply them in the best possible way. And I think the community, if you communicate clearly what you're trying to achieve, the community will buy in and understand. And also in South Africa, we have communities that are in every town, communities that are from very poor to very wealthy people. Their needs are different. Their desires are different. But because you've got a Christian basis, you are coming from the place where we are doing and we are serving, and we're coming with what is the best for everybody in this town under God's principles at hand. And that is always your guideline. And it is always from there that you seek the Lord and say, okay, fine, this is what it looks like. What do you want us to do first? Okay, so the reason why you would have a structured approach when you rebuild is it prevents these random actions that don't contribute effectively to the whole picture. You want to do the things that are going to have the bigger impact. But apart from that, working from a structure actually provides clarity, transparency, and focus. And it causes the town to know, this is where we're going, this is what we're focusing on, and this is how we're going to get there. And then, there's again no confusion. Confusion is the biggest enemy. So just to the turnaround comparison again, the dream vision, that one will come back to. Financial analysis, you don't need to do that. Discussion assessment, yes, you guys can do that. You can talk randomly to people, you can talk to business people, you can talk to councils, you can talk to everybody, and you will get a whole picture when you do that as to what is going on in this town. You will be amazed at how often what people think and assume is not the reality. So ask, talk to people, find out. What do you think needs to happen in this town? How do you think it should happen? It's very important to do that kind of information gathering. The SWOT analysis that I did before, that would be done under point number 5 later on. You'll see in more detail when your core team is in place. And it will be, from discussions and so on, you already start getting an idea of what your SWOT scenario is in your town. And then the last phase, the work is also under the paint here. So I have included here, and I'm going to jump there quickly. Okay, some addendums, which I'm going to refer to. So addendum A is the Community Chamber of Commerce model, which was in that original document. And effectively what you have there is the different groupings that form the core of the community. It is the local authorities, it is the business economic drivers, it is the local residents, and it's the social support structures, education, etc., health, and so on. Those form the groups that should be represented in your leadership in the CCC, or at least 3 of those 4 groups. If you only have, let's say you only have church leaders, you're not going to get the buy-in from everybody else because they're going to say it's a Christian initiative only, and they're not going to buy in. So you want the principles, the Christian principles, this is a Christian initiative, but you want broad buy-in so that everybody can work together towards a common goal. The other slide that I included here is the organograms. You've got the bench, the elders, the core group, and then from that you've got the 8 different pillars, which was hospitality, NPO missions, media, infrastructure, innovation, education, health, wellness. Sorry, this is an old one. Business should be here. I'll fix this up and send it to everybody. But the different areas. And so in these areas, so this is, you'll see I referred to this just now. And then there was the process, which is a very clear set out of the basic process that you can follow. And these guidelines you can tweak for your specific situation. And why is this whole thing not coming up? Okay, so is this now going to be one of these? All right. This was the ones in the original document from Jasper, the different phases, and I've got them all 3 there. And you will see that I refer to them just now. So just to go back. Okay, so in terms of the guidelines, those documents and the addendums, you set up the bench of elders and register the CC. Most of you've done, some of you've done that. Then there's the identify and onboard the core team. It's best to have 5 to 8 members. It's very difficult to, it's been proven in studies all over the world that to manage anything more than a team of 8 is extremely difficult. So it's really a cutoff. It's a team of 8. In any situation, okay? And these guys will not have to be convinced. They are people who have it in their heart. All they needed is a structure to take this forward. And this is providing them with a structure. If you have to go and spend hours convincing these top people, you're starting off on the back foot, okay? They are there. They are in the community. It's important to gather them together. Then there's this constitution, which you've done. And then the next thing is when this is in place, the team, that core team is in place, is develop a broad vision and dream. God was very clear, where there's no vision, the people perish. You need that vision. You need that dream. It is the core of how we live and move. And that is also the basis from which you then engage others. And you know what? It's from there you will get your logo. From there, you get a slogan, a brilliant slogan. And one of my things that I had in my life was an advertising company. One of the companies that I turned around was also in advertising and media. It was a group, and one of the subsidiaries was in advertising and media, etc. And a good slogan is a 3-word slogan, like Nike, just do it. For instance, something like, together better forever. A 3-word slogan is a very good slogan to always have. Okay, so that will all flow from this vision that you have, from where you're going, which is why it's so important to have the vision. And then all the other steps are in those addenda that I just put down at the bottom. There's some elements that I want you to be aware of when you do turnarounds. Same with companies as it is with towns, and turning towns around. People are hurt, they're disappointed, they're distrustful, and mostly have a wait-and-see attitude. That is what you're dealing with. Okay? That is the core. Essentially, people look at what's in it for me. And either pain or gain, that is what gets them into action. Where they can alleviate a pain, or where they see, okay, if I do that, there's a gain for me. It's not the best way of motivating people. So one of the things I do now is I lead leadership development and business consulting. And, I keep on saying to them that they need to understand that the best motivation is not pain or gain, because that motivation is only there while the pain or the gain is there. You really want internal motivation, and internal motivation comes from beliefs. It comes from internal attitudes. Okay. But so many people have been affected and impacted and programmed, and to have put self-limitation in place. Now, you're not going to I deal with that in companies, but you won't be able to deal with that where you are. But what brings forth, so you start with a pain or gain scenario, but what you then do, once they actually see that something is happening, that hope starts inside there. And from there, the belief eventually changes and comes. Okay, so it's going to be a slow process. Well, no, I'm not saying that. With God, it can be fast. The point is, it is a process. It starts at the one place. Engagement is absolutely critical. Regular communication with all stakeholders. As I said, people when they experience being heard and acknowledged, they tend to participate from the inside. It's not due to an outside thing that they participate. Expectations differ, and especially in the towns and the different levels that you deal with, you're going to find expectations differ immensely. But what people need is they need them to be heard, to be understood, and to communicate. And that is essentially it. And anything that is done from the CCC core down or outwards, it is important for it to be clearly communicated and engaged with people at all times. That is probably going to be the biggest time-consuming thing to do, but it will have the greatest impact, and it will have the longest-term benefits. There's something like peer group pressure is very valuable. In a community, you'll find some people that are going to buy in. You're going to find those that are not going to do anything. And then you are going to find those troublemakers who are actively trying to scupper whatever you're trying to do. Allow the community to sort out the troublemakers, not through lynching or anything, but they will help, they will sort them out. Be aware of the power of peer group pressure. It is always there and it's everywhere. And you can align it in order to bring good forth. Okay. Targets and timelines and goals and transparency in what you want to achieve and how you're progressing towards it and what is happening, very important. That builds buy-in and participation as well. And so that really is what I want to leave you guys with. I want you to think about these things. And then if it's okay with Jasper, we can talk. I would love to get your inputs from what you're experiencing, having thought about this, so that we can put something together that can work in this turnaround of towns concept. There will be differences, and let's bring them in. And let's put something together that we can then share with everybody. And it will always change. Right. That's my story.